Hello and welcome to another action figure review. Today we're taking a look at 4 boxes from the NECA line of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles classic cartoon. Since NECA was able to get the international license to release Ninja Turtles products, it's been really cool to be able to pre-order these outside of the US of A. Unlike the Comic-Con exclusive that was released previously, where you had to buy the whole thing in one go, you could, sort of pick and mix, but you still have to pick 2 figures at a time. We got Raphael and Foot Soldier with some rifles, we got Leonardo and Shredder, we got Krang and Donatello, and another Foot Soldier with Michelangelo. So how well do these figures stack up with other NECA stuff or the figure? A closer look at the box art. Now on the right hand side we have the villains, on the left hand side we have the heroes. Top of the box has Nickelodeon and the heroes and villains names. And the bottom has the logo of the classic cartoon TV series. One thing I really like about the box art is that the heroes don't just have their more goofy faces. A lot of more recent merchandise seems to remember the classic Turtles as just goofy, when that's not the case, especially in the later seasons when there's the red sky, kind of like the Batman animated series when that had red skies. They were trying to make it a bit more darker, and it was like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they would have the clips of the 90s movie in there to make everything more grown up, so it's good that the box art doesn't represent that, but it's not just goofy. Now obviously Michelangelo is going to be more happy, and Donatello is also going to be a little bit more like that, but we got an angry face for Raphael, even though he's not that angry in the cartoon series, and a more stern face for Leonardo. The box, half the side of it is dedicated to an action pose of the figure, as well as collect them all and the other different photos. These are just the same photos from all the other boxes. The description on the back is the same for all of them. After being accidentally exposed to radioactive ooze, 4 ordinary household pets are transformed into a band of wisecracking, pizza-loving, villain-dicing adolescent reptiles. Meet Leonardo, the super cool sword-wielding leader, Raphael, the jokester hurling manholes and one-liners in rapid succession, Donatello, the brain behind the brawn, and Michelangelo, the ice cream pizza gobbling party animal. Whether it's facing fierce enemies or saving humanity from near extinction, with the guidance of their sensei, these heroes in the half shell are always ready for straight out of the sewer action. This tagline, it doesn't really do it for me. On the bottom of the box we just have the barcode and some logos and some sculpt and designer names, credits right there, so that's cool that the sculptors are getting their credit. On top of the box you just get the logo again, but on the side you get something that almost looks like the arcade or Super Nintendo games in the character selection screen. That's pretty cool. And on the other side you get the villains. It's pretty awesome. I'm just going to unbox one of these because the process for all of them is going to be the same. On both sides there's a little tape just to stop it from opening. Open up the flap, you can see it's a cardboard box, which is quite sturdy and stuff. I'm totally fine with that. And then you flip open these flaps and then you pull the tray out. So it's a bit stuck because the tape glue is stuck on it. And inside here you can see there's a backing sheet of the sewers. Inside this tray here you've of course got the 2 figures as well as all of their accessories. Originally you can see some of the glue marks there. I removed all of that. I'm thinking I'm going to go over this with some sort of like thinner just to remove all this goo left behind for the sellotape. So basically they have tape to protect and stop all of the accessories from falling out. But I think there was no point for that because you see nothing's falling out. The figures aren't falling out either. There's an actual clip in. Another thing is the figures originally had those little wire ties on them, which is just stop. We don't need those wire ties. Stop doing them. They're a waste of time, waste of energy, resources and everything. They just get in the way. I can't even untie them because they were tied on the back so securely, and whatever knots that they were using, I actually had to cut them. So I can't even use those metal ties for something else because I had to cut them. Shredder is the only one that has a fabric cape and actually has a little hole there for the cape to come out. I've already opened this previously, of course, so let's put the cape in there. And he also has a humid sucking bag, whatever these things are called. And there you go, you have all these figures in this little plastic tray. Pretty cool. Going through the accessories, since all 4 turtles have the same skin color, their hands are interchangeable. All of them by default has a regular item holding hand on their torsos. Leo here comes with 2 spray open palms, a closed turtle phone, his 2 katanas, And Shredder here comes with a little phone with Krang's angry face on it, obviously telling him off. His own sword, which is different from Leo, has a different handle and it's a bit, thinner. And he has fists attached to his body, as well as 2 sword holding hands and 2 spray open sort of action hands. And down here we have a canister. Next up, Raphael, he has 2 middle finger pointing up hands, which, yeah, that's funny, but at the same time that's actually his sai proper holding hands. He comes with a pizza with a hole in the middle for the sai to stick through it. And this first foot soldier here comes with a laser pistol, a rifle, and aside from the fist already attached to him, he also has his item holding hands as well as some spray open palms. And it seems that all of the hands use the same joints as well, and the skin tone here is the same as the Shredder, so Shredder could use these hands if he doesn't feel like having those claws on the back of his hands. Michelangelo comes with the open version of the turtle phone, as well as his little grappling hook thingy there, and his 2 nunchucks, of course, as well as a special piece here on the back for attaching to one of the nunchucks to do a sort of nunchuck spinning pose. He comes with a extra pair of thumbs up turtle hands, and as for the foot soldier, he's the exact same as the other one, except that he comes with a different weapon. I can't remember what this weapon is. With Donatello and Krang, he comes with well, I think the hands that come with Donatello, the extra hands, are actually Raphael's sai holding hands. Because they can't grip anything else except the sai properly. And these hands are made out of very hard plastic. There's not much give to it, so if you don't want to snap these sais, you got to be careful in attaching them. What you do is you get one of the hooks and slide it through the thumb and the middle finger, and once it slides to a certain position, you can just sort of pop the middle one in. And there you go, he's holding the sais properly. And why on earth does that have to come with Donatello and not Raphael? Just on the other side, because we have Krang and his Krang droid. This is really cool, and a little sort of 3-legged stool that he can sort of sit on. Of course, look at some of the accessories. First of all, the turtle's weapons. All of them are molded in a slightly soft-ish plastic, but they have a nice matte finish and feel to them. The paint job on this bow staff is pretty good, and the black lining, much like everything else on here, is also very much visible, as they're really trying to get that hand-drawn cartoony look applied to these figures. Leo's sword looks good from one side, but seems a little bit too thick, almost like it looks like a Persian sword. Looks kind of weird. Don't know, I'm not a fan of it. But on the other side, we can clearly see some molding injection spots. Another bad thing with Leo's swords is, yes, he does have the sword holding pouches there, but you see they're really tight and don't fit in properly. I mean, that looks ridiculous. I did previously push them all the way down, but when pulling the sword back out, A, it left a brown residue on the sword itself, so it was decoloring it, and B, it was actually ripping the plastic and paint job there. You can see a bit of blue shining through. That's already starting to rip it. Now, these are just soft rubbery plastic there, and I wish that these slots were a bit bigger, because this is far too tight of a fit. Otherwise, it just seems... just don't use that, it just doesn't work out. Compare this to Donatello's slot for the bow staff, it's done a much better job here. Raphael holding his sai and a slice of pizza. This hand can sort of hold it, but that's more due to the pizza itself being a very soft piece of plastic, just sort of squeezing it between this finger and his palm. So I don't think it's meant to do that, but it just, because the plastic has a little give to it, you can sort of hold it. And the side itself, it's like just very simple colors, nothing too special here, but it looks the part, looks good. The way they painted it is because it had strong black lines, it almost like it's burnt pizza, but whatever. There's a hole there, so you stick the pizza onto the side, and there you go. You got one of the poses from the show, I guess. Finally, we have Mikey's nunchucks. Both of these have metal chains, but only one of these pieces can be separated to attach the alternate attachment, which is this one. So let me just plug that in. And this hinge is a little bit on the loose side, but it's fine. This thing does spin. I can just get it to spin on camera. There we go. When it's spinning, it looks kind of cool. When it's still, it still looks kind of cool for display purposes. So you got the hinge there and rotation, whatever. It looks okay. It's Mikey's other weapon, his grappling hook, actually has proper string there. So that's kind of cool. So Mikey can sort of hold on to this little plastic nub there, and the grappling hook itself has the grapples that you can pull out. Softish plastic, do be careful. It does feel like it's gonna snap if you put too much force or strength on it. And you see that the grapple doesn't quite come out of the turtle shell area, so there's not much room for it to grapple onto anything. Maybe they did this consciously so you don't actually put any force or weight on this. I don't know, it's an accessory that's nice to have, I guess, but it's non-functional. Should I say, this isn't like some of the older action figures where they have actual grapple hooks that can hold on to something. It's just too thin, too small for that. With the turtle phones, we have our closed version here. The paint job is... paint job's pretty excellent, and they didn't slack on the details on the underside either. This turtle phone has a little bit of plastic extra there that didn't cut off correctly, so you can probably just sand that down, but whatever. The actual piece itself, again, it's pretty nice. The screen on this side, all the communications and stuff. These pieces are made out of very soft plastic, so don't worry about snapping them, and the overall piece looks quite good. Speaking of phones, here's the one with Krang's face on it. He's pissed off. The sticker is very shiny. I guess you can say that's because it's a monitor, so it has like a gloss to it, whatever. This thing is made out of slightly harder plastic, so be careful, don't snap these grey bits that pop out. The paint details on this is pretty nice, and on the other side, they also didn't cheap out either. Although black lighting here seems a little bit too excessive. Next we have our canister here, and they painted a shadow on one side, which I'm normally not a fan of, but with the cartoon aesthetics, it looks okay. It looks just like a two-tone piece canister. Next we have a laser pistol. This again looks really good. It's just painted really nicely. It reminds me of old Nintendo accessories. The rifle looks good as well. Hard plastic. And then there's this giant gun. I really can't remember what this is. I've just sort of recognized it from the video games and stuff that they always use these as well. Looking at all four turtles here, you can see they are all mostly the exact same mold and the exact same figure. Now all of them, the difference between the insignia, the little letter on their belt buckle, the colors of their little bands, of course, the head sculpt, and of course Leo here and Donatello here have a slightly different strap on the back to hold their staff and katana swords, whereas Raphael and Mikey just sort of holds their weapons between the two halves of their shells. Now since all four of these turtles are the exact same mold, one thing I don't like about these is that they all only have one facial expression, and it's not a neutral facial expression. If you're only going to give, like seriously, action figure manufacturers, if you're only going to give us one head, it better be the most neutral expression you can do, because then we can apply our own imaginations and apply these figures in different photo shoots and different scenarios, and they'll still look okay. Whereas here, all four turtles all look kind of pissed off. Leo's really angry, ignoring his wonky painted eyes. That's frustrating. Raphael looks pissed, and Donatello looks constipated, and Michelangelo just looks kind of annoyed. All of them are grinning. Now here's the thing, since all of these have different plastic molded together, all the headbands are actually a separate piece of plastic, wouldn't it be nice for us to be able to swap the headbands around, just swap the heads around for different expressions to apply to different characters? But we can't do that because everything's glued down. So that's annoying that they don't come with a secondary face and you can't swap the headbands around, and yeah, just not a fan of that. The expressions we do have here, however, I don't think matches them too well. Yes, this is their combat looks, but even then I don't think Mikey has ever looked this angry or aggressive before. And Donatello as well. Ralph and Leo, I can imagine that, but Ralph for this cartoon series doesn't quite fit this look either. They're just too grumpy, almost compensating for all the other action figures out there that are far too goofy. So not a fan of that. Since all four turtles are essentially the same figure, I'm going to focus on Mikey here to demonstrate some of the details, because Mikey's my favorite. So the logo there, that's painted quite nicely, got the black outline on it, molded quite well too. This piece here, as well as the entire belt strap, is all a very soft plastic. It stretches just a little bit, but still be careful and don't try to break it. The shell is also a soft rubbery material to hopefully not hinder articulation too much, but the rest of the figure is pretty solid. This is a hard shell. This piece here is softish and can rotate, but it's always in the up position. Really wish that it would come down and relax a little bit. Just add an extra hinge there, come on. It's not impossible. And yeah, if you look between the shell, you can see there's some muscle detail there, but the green is slightly different from the rest of the body. It's just sort of a shadowed look, and you can see that all of these turtles on the back, you can see that they have the shadows painted on, some little cut line. For the most part, just looking at the figure from the front, that's okay, but when you look at it from the side, you start to think, why has it got different colors? Fortunately, these colors are not too different from each other, so it's not too big of a deal, but I really would have preferred if these figures didn't have this sort of shadow painted on them. I mean, look at this, Mikey's just got like a sort of like a wet patch on the back of his head. In terms of articulation, he does have a ball and peg in there somewhere, so he's got the double neck joint as well. That's really cool. So you look that far down, that far up, rotating here, and it looks sideways and sideways. This peg, like I said, can rotate a little bit, so you can do slightly different poses, but really not much there. On Wi-Fi, I noticed that if you bend this a bit too much, there's a little white line there, so don't try to like bend this too much, you might break it. Rotating seems to be fine, so there you go. The upper arm joint, you've got a hinge here, a socket hinge sort of thing, so you can rotate this arm, pull it up that much. The first time any of these joints were moved from the, when I tried to move any of these joints the first time, everything was really tight, and it did get a little bit worrying if I was going to break anything, so do be mindful of that. Maybe soak it in hot water before playing with it for the first time. Upper arm rotating joint there, a single elbow joint, that's really cool, as well as another rotating joint there. That's awesome. Hands are on pegs, and whichever hand you have, it might have a swivel in a different position. You see here, this hand, the swivel's there, but oh, I'm getting white plastic on there, that's not good. Can't really bend it. A lot of these hands, especially, the joints just really tight. So, I'm not breaking that. I hope I'm not breaking this. I'm definitely getting some paint rub off or plastic rub off from doing that, but at least it's moving now. So these joints, be very careful with them. Seriously, they're annoying the first time you move them. Moving down from there, there is a hip joint, so you can rotate the hip a little bit. I think you can move this hip up. Yeah, you move the hip up a bit, but this plastic pushes it back down. It doesn't quite work. Yeah, sort of see the inside of the figure there. Oh well, but whatever. So the legs have this hinge joint. Now, all these turtles, they have different hinges there. These peg lines are very obvious, but there's nothing on this side. Although when I'm moving it, I can sort of feel peg there somewhere, but not as much as this side. So I guess this is the leg that's supposed to hold the figure up with more strength with the little bumps, and this one's the smoother movement, maybe. So rotation there, rotation here, just a little bit. Single knee joint. Okay, and foot is on a peg and swivel. And so they can still do quite a lot of poses. It's quite impressive for such a bulky figure, as always, with these Ninja Turtles. And but when you do extreme poses, you do start to see the action figureness of it. But for the most part, when you're standing here, he looks okay. And the great thing about Ninja Turtles is because they have these little bands around, they do hide the joints quite nicely. So as much as I don't like these little pegs, at least they're the same color as the skin tone, and they're just, for the turtles, these pegs are only on the legs, on the knees, and I can't see them anywhere else, so that's pretty good. For Foot Soldier, now both of these are the same, except the quality control might be slightly different. This piece is way too shiny, he's wet himself. Even though he's an android, whatever version, in this cartoon they were robots. So they got this really weird sort of hunchback neck thing going on. It's cool, I guess. The darker purple shadows on the back is quite nice. I wish the whole figure was just this darker shade, but the front one is okay too. The eyes look pretty good, the foot logo is pretty nice, and these are soft rubbery pieces which hide one of those pegs, but since it's all black plastic, the pegs are hidden quite well. The pegs are colored here as well, although this one doesn't fill in the gaps, so that's a bit disappointing. On this side it fills in the gaps, so I think it's just kind of luck how far the pegs are plugged into each side. If you rotate these arms, God, these are really tight joints. With these arms outward, you can see more of these pegs, but as a sort of a minion or soldier, like army building figure, I don't mind those pegs as much as if if these were main characters. So this piece is also soft and rubbery, so you can do more poses. So anyway, articulation wise, you got the head joint. You can look a little bit down. He's already looking very far down, depending how you see it. Look up. You can look left and right, and of course rotate the head. It's good. Peg and swivel here again. Very tight joint. Rotating here, single elbow joint. and hand is on a peg. And again, a swivel there, but it's very much stuck. No rotating joint here, unlike the turtles. Rotating joint on the hip, seriously, why is this not a ball joint? That's very disappointing. Legs go up, back, sideways, rotate. Double knee joint, foot is on a peg and swivel. And toes actually do have a joint, if I can move it, like tippy toes and tippy toes there. So that's cool. Regular shoe patterns underneath. And these both actually smooth joints. And these joints technically look really ugly, but this cloth piece does hide it. And because technically these are androids, they don't need to be, like too humanoid, I guess. We have the shredder. This cape is pretty good, and it actually drops down very nicely. As light as it is, feels like almost like it's one of those lens wiping or camera or glasses wiping cloths, almost. So it has a very nice soft feel to it. What I don't like is this extra bit up here. It's really hard to handle. You just got to push it in to make it look more natural. Like, it looks natural there, but it's very easy for it to do something like that. Like, oh, I can't see, which I guess kind of matches his goofiness in the cartoon. But whatever. If you don't want to have him do that, you can quite easily unpeg the head and just remove this from the body. Now, he does have repeated pieces from the foot soldier. The shoulder and the upper arms are the same as the foot soldier, and everything underneath the hip area is the exact same mold as the foot soldier. They just glued on these extra shredded pads onto him. And because of that, his hip looks really skinny. Not a fan of that. So those are the downside. The upside is, again, because of this piece here, it covers up these little hand peg joints quite nicely. And these pads also cover another joint there, which I guess is on foot soldier as well, that I sort of missed. So you're rotating foot joint. The head is also painted very nicely. That face there looks just like it does in the cartoon. I'm very happy with that. And I'm glad he has a stern look and not some sort of weird wide-eyed goofy face. Would have been really nice if I could remove this face mask, but no, it is glued down there, so you can't remove that. So articulation, he has a single neck joint, which is annoying, but he can still do quite a lot of poses. Rotation there. By the way, these pegs are soft-ish, so they're not that easy to snap. All these spikes are soft, very soft rubber plastic too, so no harm will come to kids, I guess. The hip joint, again, is just rotating, very disappointing. These shoulder pads are just sort of soft rubber plastic that's attached to the main torso, so they just sort of move out the way. The arm can go up, it's got the rotation there. Upper arm rotation, double elbow joint, hands got a peg and just a peg system and swivel. So I've already loosened them quite a bit. And the feet are the same as the foot soldier, so up, forwards, back. And this cloth thing does cover the joint quite nicely. Knee joint, the joint I forget this rotating there, peg and swivel, and of course toe joints. Next up we have Krang. Now he comes with this little stool as mentioned. There's a round circle here which suggests that you can plug this stool in. But it isn't quite big enough for the stool to plug all the way in, so you're always going to be like slightly slanted. That's really annoying, and you think maybe I could put more force onto this, but no. These pegs are very easy to snap. I'm not putting strength on this little stool. Fortunately, even like this, he can sit just fine on this thing, but if you want this to actually be plugged in, well, it's sort of plugged in, it's just not going to do it properly. That's very annoying. Just be really careful with these stools. He's got single articulation really. It's just these little arms they're on little ball pegs, like double ball pegs. So very easy to replace if they ever get missing or broken. And here's the thing, this Krang is a hard piece of plastic. It has no give whatsoever. The arms have a little bit of give just because of how thin they are compared to this chunky piece of plastic. That's a shame. I really wish this thing was a soft plastic. It would have made much more sense. Make it a little bit squishy. So unfortunately we don't have that, so just very basic articulation on these arms there. So I'm going to unplug his arms right now. Now these come out very easily because they go into his little Krang box that he can plug into. The paint details on him are very nice. The face is very good. The sculpting is just excellent. These little bits that come out, they have just enough give that they don't feel like they're going to break, but still be careful with them. And of course they do have, you know, his shadow paint on here, but fortunately most of the shadows just underneath, so you're not really going to notice it. There's a few lines here and there, but they feel like they're part of the art, so that's fine. Moving over to this little droid carrier thing, just looking at details there, the painting is very good. Nice, very great. They painted the little pipes and the little machinery on the back. In terms of articulation, you got these moving up and down, single sort of knee joint, and these pieces just rotate. So you can't do too many epic poses with him, just the most basic sort of droid poses. And of course this opens up. And mine for some reason has a bunch of extra like goo here, some paint issues on there, but fortunately I'm not really going to notice that because I'm just going to have Krang sit there. So in order to get him in there, you just, I don't know, wiggle him in, because you see here he doesn't want to fit, like he doesn't fit properly. It's effort, honestly, to get him in here, and that's very, very frustrating. It's just a shame how good the sculpt and painting is. It's just, oh, he went in there quite easily that time. I just had to position him oddly. First time I did this took me ages. He's not quite in there though. He's not quite correct. I think that's as good as I'll get it for now. So close that. He does look good in there. If I do want to remove this, I don't think I can. There's a really long peg in there. I'm not going to risk it. So anyway, so get his arms. Drop them in. Come on, still going. Again, it sort of works. Not quite good, but it gets the job done. So just stand him there. Got Krang in this little robot. That's kind of nice. Krang though, I'm definitely rubbing paint off him onto the Krang bot. So that's annoying. Not too noticeable because of the way the color is, but damn it. Let's just do a action figure size comparison. Right here we have our Michelangelo, the new one, of course Shredder right here, and Krang. And you see next to him is the SH FiguArts Michelangelo, and you see they're pretty much the exact same scale. The FiguArts one is just slightly, ever so slightly taller, and he also looks like he's ever so slightly bulkier and, you know, and wider as well. Next to them is also the bootleg Revoltech Michelangelo I have for the 2012 series, and of course the bootleg copies the mold of the regular release, so it is the exact same figure, so the scale is correct. So you can see that this one, in terms of action figures, is the smallest one. He's about a head shorter than both of these turtles. Here we have the NECA movie turtle, which is a head taller, so we've got 3 head levels of turtles right here. And since the cartoon Turtles from NECA is the same mold as the video game versions, I'm going to assume, you know, same height and same everything. I think they are the exact same molds. I do believe the Super 7 one that was just announced will be slightly bigger, maybe more in line with the movie Turtles there. But as you can see, even though the movie Turtles are taller, he's also a lot thinner, and in terms of scale, it does feel like that he can mix with the cartoon Shredder. Like this cartoon Shredder and the movie Turtles are sort of roughly in the same scale. They wouldn't look out of place. And of course, just for funsies, here's the Lego Michelangelo, the Mega Bloks 2012 or Mega Construct Michelangelo, and we have the classic Mega Bloks minifigure of Michelangelo from the 2002 series. Phew. And then when we zoom out, you can see I actually post a lot of other figures here for you to compare the size to. Just in terms of things that might work, you can see that the Storm Collectibles Scorpion there fits quite nicely with the Shredder. He's a little bit taller, but hey, Scorpion's not quite human, he's also quite menacing. I think that's fine. I previously reviewed the Storm Collectible version of M. Bison from Street Fighter. He's even bigger, but that kind of makes sense because he's meant to be like a hulking character. So that kind of matches. So Storm Collectible stuff can match with your NECA toys. That's kind of nice. In front there we have the figurized version of Kamen Rider XA. You can see he's just a tad bit shorter than Shredder, so I think he does match. He can fit in, play with them quite well. Just, you know, be mindful when you're posing the figure and certain photo angles. He definitely matches very well with any of the Turtle figurines. Next up is the Batman animated series from DC Collectibles themselves. He is pretty much the same scale as the figurized X8, so he's a little bit shorter than the Foot Soldier and Shredder, but again, depending on the pose, you should be able to get away with it. He is a very nice scale compared to the cartoon Turtles. That's pretty awesome. Now, I don't have any Marvel Legends, but here is a Black Series Ahsoka, which I think is the same scale as Marvel Legends, correct me if I'm wrong, but she's a slightly smaller scale, which fits closer to SH FiguArts, so she's not really going to fit with Shredder, but with Krang and the Ninja Turtle, she should fit quite fine. Just for funsies, there's the Mario FiguArts, which I think that the scale is fine, because Mario doesn't really have a proper scale. He's a lot smaller than, you know, regular humanoids anyway. And we have our Buzz Lightyear, one of the new model figures here, who's also a bit shorter than, you know, Batman and Ahsoka there. But because of the way he's designed, like, I can't treat him as a Space Marine next to the Turtles. Well, maybe the Turtles, but definitely not Shredder. He wouldn't look right standing next to him. On the left-hand side here, next to the movie Michelangelo, we have the Figma Deadpool. He's definitely smaller. He can maybe fit with the cartoon Turtles, but definitely not the movie ones. Behind him is the Sofubi, like the Hero Rider series, the soft vinyl stuff that you see on hooks. No packaging whatsoever. He's the right scale. He's just as tall as Shredder, maybe just half a helmet shorter. But he can fit in very easily. Real Bone, the new SH FiguArts O's right there, definitely smaller than Shredder. It's not going to fit. And just for more funsies, there's the mid-range sort of soft vinyl gem there, and the regular sort of really cheapy candy toy soft vinyl of Build right there. So there are all these different scales. I should remember I had even more figures. So I added the Power Armor, that's from Funko, the 112. That's definitely way too small for scale. I think the Humanoid Voltron, which I don't own anymore, I sold that to a co-worker, is a little bit smaller than the Power Armor, but that Power Armor is definitely way too small when compared to the NECA figures. We have our Mezco Raiden from Mortal Kombat there. He looks absolutely tiny. He's pretty much FiguArts scale, so yep. And I also added the NECA Alien, Gorilla Alien. Now he is menacing, towering over all the other figures, but he's supposed to. So if we bring in the face hugger from the same figure, you can see that it matches Shredder's head. So in terms of scale, the Shredder or the movie Turtles also follow the same scale as the other NECA lines, such as the NECA Alien we see right here. And if we compare to some other figures that we don't have here, for example, the Shodo line is roughly this soft vinyl size, so you can know what scale is that. The SH FiguArts Pikachu is the same, roughly same size as Mario, so is the Revoltech Gorilla Kuma. Bear Rider Kick series is about half a head shorter, about a head shorter than SH FiguArts. That's all I'm going to compare for now. I look forward to picking up the DC collectibles of Batman vs Ninja Turtle set, and I'll do another Michelangelo comparison there. Here we have the NECA Turtles next to the FiguArts ones, just so you can quickly see all of their subtle differences. All of the SHF faces are a standard relaxed expression. They look a little bit on the angry side, just a tiny bit, but otherwise they are flat expressions. And the good thing about SHF is that all of them come with an extra head. Here they are. Raphael comes with a screaming face, Mikey comes with a face, kind of like the reverse, just mirrored version of the NECA one. Leo has a face, again very similar to this one, but a little bit more extreme. Donatello comes with a very happy, kind of derpy face. Again, a little bit on the extreme side, but it's nice to have one face at least that's sort of a cheeky, goofy face that, you know, does apply somewhat to the classic cartoons. Another thing that all of the SHF Ninja Turtles come with are extra hands. By default they have the fists attached to them, but they also have item holding hands, spray open hands, and relaxed hands to do a lot more different posing. Another big difference with the torso is instead of relying on rubbery straps to hold on to their weapons, the SHF figures actually come with swappable attachments for the back of the shell to hold on to their weapons. We got the sword slot, side slot, nunchuck slot, and of course a bow staff slot. And one of the other biggest difference with the bodies is that everything under the knees on the SH FiguArts are made out of die-cast metal. This makes them so much easier to stand because they have a heavy lower weight. For characters such as Turtles, they can be quite bulky, and it's going to be quite hard to stand them up if they're top heavy, which is where the die-cast feet come in very handy. The insignia on their belts are also made out of metal. Just like the NECA figures, for the most part the turtles share the same body. So we're just gonna use Michelangelo as a comparison here. If we just start with the painted details, you can see that this one's a much brighter green and perhaps closer to how the cartoon looked, whereas this is probably closer to the last season of the cartoon. And of course another thing with this one is that they've applied all the black lines to give a more cartoony look. The SH FiguArts represents the turtles, the cartoon turtles, if they were in kinda in real life, so they're not going to do any of the shadings, the shadows or lining, and they're just going to let actual sunlight or actual lighting to do the trick. Although NECA has previewed a lighter color, more of a bright neon green almost color of these figures that are going to come out sometime soon, I guess. From what I can tell from the photos, the green is the same green as this, but with slightly more saturated, slightly more neon, perhaps a bit too much. So the SH FiguArts turtle will sort of be in the middle between the two different NECA releases, and if you're going to compare that with the video game color versions, then I think the video green is very similar to the SH FiguArts one. Starting from the head here, now there is one extra articulation. Like I said, this is because of round pegs. This one can actually rotate, whereas the SH FiguArts one is pretty solid and just tucks in there in a square peg, so it doesn't have any articulation whatsoever. Moving over to the back, you can see both of them have the shell molding, but again the color here is much darker and this one's more flat toned. For the most part, the orange like straps that they have and the bandanas and all that do cover the joints on both of these figures, but of course FiguArts doesn't have that plug or peg joint, whereas their pegs still shown on the NECA figure. Both these figures have front soft shells. We can see that this one's quite durable, like quite solid, whereas this one really soft. Look at how far it can go. In fact, by doing that you can actually have a lot more articulation with this turtle. Another thing is the back shell is also not permanently attached to the body and has some movement of its own as well, again to aid with more articulation. The SH FiguArts has a lot more articulation compared to the NECA one, and in so has a lot more cut up as well. You see that there's a huge cut on the leg, which is not aesthetically pleasing. The shoulder has also a lot more cuts on it, which do look a little bit weird and a little bit out of place, like he's pushing his shoulders forward. And on certain angles I can understand how some people might find the SH FiguArts figure ugly. But for me personally, I do enjoy this articulation. If I just have this turtle on the shelf, I am very happy. But if I want to play around with something, I'm gonna want the SH FiguArts. And in terms of color, if you want something that's more closer to the cartoon, the SH FiguArts also wins. Although something for a bit more stylized and look cooler, I guess, the NECA one does a good job. Well, the SH FiguArts here has a lot more articulation. You can see that the NECA one isn't too bad even when you compare it to the SH FiguArts. It can still do a lot of different poses that the SHF can do. Now obviously the biggest difference here is the SHF can move his torso around and do more hip and stomach movement, as well as hinging his shoulders and arms forward so he can cross his arms a lot easier. Last things about articulation comparison is that the SH FiguArts turtle, much like all the other Bandai or Japanese releases in general, just feels a lot more smoother and nicer to play around with. Nothing's too stiff, too tight, nothing's too loose, and as you see here, all the movement just goes so easily. And it just feels really good to mess around in the hand, especially with a bulky figure like this. You're really not too scared about breaking any of the joints, and the overall movement just feels so nice to play around with. Really, my biggest gripe with articulation is just this sort of ankle joint there, which looks really ugly, but otherwise the overall movement just feels so good. And with the NECA figures, maybe because they're relying on cheaper production costs, the engineering wise, they had to have these little bumps on the joint, which I really don't like, because between the bumps you got very loose movement, and when you do get the bumps, if you say want to animate these or pose them in particular pose, the bump might get in the way and of course make everything not feel smooth at all, and of course you have problems like this. Like I said, some of these joints are really tight, especially on some of the hand joints. It's really worrying that I'm going to break them if I'm messing around with them. So yes, just a little bit more frustrating, a little bit more careful. Just be mindful when you're messing with the NECA stuff. On the other hand, I feel like I can throw the NECA one and it won't break compared to if I throw this one. This one would definitely have some chips if I start chucking these around. This one will probably survive a lot longer than the SH FiguArts. Gonna compare the accessories. The NECA post staff looks so much nicer. It also has a detachable joint here for whatever reason. Maybe it makes it easier to plug into the figure's hands. I don't know. It's there, it's useful. The SHF one just looks like a blank stick, There's some strapping details there, but it's not painted, doesn't look that nice. Reminds me of the old Playmates figures where they don't paint any of their accessories. The SH Donatello comes with a pizza slice, which again looks very cartoony, and in this case, I'm 50-50. I like the colors on the NECA one, but I don't like the black lining. But this one, the colors are just too cartoony. There's definitely no comparison between these. The Leo Katana blades look much nicer, much cooler than the NECA one. Leo SHF also comes with a sewer cover, which looks okay, I guess. So the size, again, I'm gonna prefer the metallic side from the SH FiguArts, but I think the cartoony look of the NECA one is not bad at all. But in terms of accessories, Raphael also comes with an extra ninja star as well as a ninja throwing blade, which I don't think I ever used in the cartoon, but it's nice stuff to have because they're ninja weapons. I based that more on the original Playmates figure where they just give you all the weapons you need, and I think these weapons were included with the original Playmates Raphael. Finally, with Michelangelo, you can see that they both use metal chains, so both are good in that aspect, and the handlebars are just a slightly different design. Again, both are good. I don't know which one is better. I think they both have their goodness to it. Now, of course, the NECA one comes with this spinny blade, but instead of that, the SHF one just comes with these two sort of solid versions, which are kind of cool for posing and stuff, but this chain looks really ugly and looks silly when you compare it and stuff. So I think the NECA one does win out on the extra accessory. Oh, just to quickly compare that with the Revoltech spinny disc thing, you see they're very similar, but this one has a bit of like blur to it, just sort of like motion blur. The SH FiguArts Michelangelo also comes with a grapple hole. You can see it's a lot smaller, but these things actually open up and can actually grapple onto something. They're made out of hardish plastic and don't feel too fragile. As I complained earlier about this grapple, I'm gonna say this one's gonna win, but in terms of length, the NECA one does have almost double the length of string, and on both these ends they have a little bit of thing to hold on to. This one's a bit more detail on the SHF, whereas this one's just a tiny plastic peg. It's both fine as long as they work. The string here is much thinner, whereas the FiguArts one almost feels like an actual rope. Accessories that NECA has that didn't come with the SHF is, of course, the turtle phones, and I think these are very important accessories indeed. Now, Bandai did tease their Shredder SH FiguArts at one point that was never released because the line was cancelled, and I'm assuming if the line did well, they would have carried on producing other characters such as Casey or April, and I'm guessing April would have come with a turtle phone, but because that never happened, as far as I'm concerned, the FiguArts don't have this very important accessory. Overall, I think the NECA turtles are pretty good, especially when you consider the price. The overall molding on these are very solid, the plastic does feel nice in the hand, the nice matte finish is pretty good as well. The overall paint job on these are also pretty decent. Aside from that wonky eye on my Leonardo, the overall paint job on these are pretty excellent, especially when you consider that they added the black lining, the cartoony look to all of these figures. It's a pretty impressive job, especially again for the price. The articulation on these turtles are also pretty decent. They're very stiff to begin with, but after you move them for a while, when the joints start to loosen up, it's much nicer to play around with. Although, still not nice as the FiguArts, they're still pretty good. They can do a lot of different poses, and the joints aren't that obvious and hidden quite well. The accessory count is also pretty decent. They come with all the essential turtle stuff that they really should have, and nothing feels really missing here. Although some of the accessories do lack a little bit of functionality, overall I'm still pretty pleased with them, again considering the price of these figures. But for me personally, if I was to compare these with the SH FiguArts turtles, I'm gonna choose the SH FiguArts turtles because, well, the articulation is a lot smoother on them, they have a lot more accessories, they got more hands. What hands can be shared between the NECA turtles, that's the thing, you have to share the hands between the 4 turtles. So there is some limitation there in terms of the posing. It is nice that they can share the hands, but with the SH FiguArts, every turtle has their own set of hands that I can pose them with, so they can do their high freeze. All of them can have relaxed hands, whereas the NECA turtles, you can't do that. Having 2 expressions each for the SH FiguArts is also a huge plus for me. In terms of the original release pricing, the SH FiguArts are of course a lot more expensive when compared to the NECA turtles. And when you consider import fees and shipping and all that, if you're living in the West, I definitely say pick up the NECA turtles because the SH FiguArts are going to be very expensive for you. However, since the line was cut and cancelled, I've seen the SH FiguArts turtles popping up, all of them cheaper than half their original pricing, which means they only cost a little bit more than the NECA turtles when you divide the prices up. So if you can get the SH FiguArts turtles at their cheap, more than half price, then yeah, I definitely recommend you pick up the SHF and not pick up the NECA stuff. That's of course you prefer the darker color and of course the cartoon lining or comic book lining of the NECA design. But of course all of these NECA turtles are packaged with the villains, which isn't that bad to be honest. Normally I would be a little bit annoyed like why can't I buy figures individually, but in this case this is one of the first times that these cartoon turtles have been released in this scale, in this large quantities. So for the most part no one has a Shredder figure, no one has foot soldiers in this scale, so in that sense I don't mind it. On the villain side, I think the foot soldiers look really good. The articulation on them are very nice. Really wish they would have had the hip joint as a ball peg, but otherwise I think they're really good. The foot soldiers weapons also very nice, and they also come with their own sets of hands. In fact, almost feel like, you know, when you divide it out, the foot soldiers have more hand accessories than Ninja Turtles. That's a bit of a bummer. The overall look, scale, articulation, paint job on these foot soldiers are just excellent, and I like them a lot. I think they move a lot smoother than the turtles. Shredder of course looks really good. I'm so happy that we finally have a classic cartoon Shredder that looks like him. Forget all the old toys that look like he's taking a crap, the colors are wrong. In terms of a 1/12 scale, this Shredder is excellent. The legs are a little bit on the skinny side because he just uses the same mold as the foot soldiers, which are supposed to look a bit weird. So when posing this Shredder, you're gonna have to like mess around with the posing a little bit. Maybe someone can customize this Shredder and swap his legs out with some of the blank figure legs from like FiguArts or Figma maybe. So the top half of Shredder, excellent. The bottom half, not quite, but I'm still really happy with the Shredder I got. Maybe another customizing thing you can do is add some wires to his cape, and that would be really cool. But overall, I am very happy with Shredder. I'm very happy with his sword and other accessories. It's pretty awesome. I really love the phone where Krang is just shouting at him because Shredder's done something wrong again. That's great. As for Krang himself, his little robot droid, the little gimmicky thing, which I know a lot of old Krang action figure fans will be really pleased to get. That droid thing is pretty solid, it stands quite well. Would have preferred it to have a little bit of extra articulation so his legs can move just out of place, but the overall paint job look of it is very nice. Krang himself also looks really good. The paint job is excellent, and even with the shadows, for the most part those are hidden, you're not going to see it. Krang is pretty awesome. Again, I would have preferred this Krang was made with a soft rubbery plastic instead of this hard one that we have right now. I do wish he can fit on his accessories a lot better than he is right now, and it is very unfortunate that he has paint rub off when using his accessories. That's a big bummer, and I really wish they can improve on that and maybe not have that be a problem, making me make the droid a bit bigger, or making me make Krang ever so slightly smaller so he can fit in there much easier. I've seen third party like Krang droids and stuff where the Krang can fit very nicely into his robot. So if there are any future Krang releases, I hope they improve on that a lot. Finally, one accessory that I really wish they have was a proper TGRI or TCRI, whichever version of like ooze canister that's transparent or painted green. That'd be really cool to have. So if we have a Splinter figure in the future, I hope he comes with something like that. So overall, this NECA release, I'm very pleased with it, especially for the price. I think these are excellent figures to pick up. If you love the classic Turtles, you definitely want to pick these up. If you have a little bit more cash to spare, then seriously consider picking up the SH FiguArts Ninja Turtles, especially if you can find them at half the price. So there you go. For the price that these things are going for, they are absolutely excellent. While I still prefer the SH FiguArts Turtles, these are still really good in their own right, and they look really good, they pose really nice. Bit on the tight side, slightly less joints, but they look the part. They are just really good for the price. Every time people say I'm biased towards, SH FiguArts and I shouldn't compare, for them imports with, something that Hasbro would release. I'm just saying, if Hasbro can put their quality up to NECA, I wouldn't be complaining as much. Here are the things, here are the facts. These are USA products. You can buy these in the USA. They are cheaper per figure than anything Hasbro has released in the Black Series or the Marvel Legends line. And yet the quality here is better. You get more accessories, you get more hands, you get just more of everything. Better paint job, better finish. I mean, for God's sake, Hasbro doesn't even give a matte finish on their figures. They all look so plasticky and shiny. On top of that, because of the art style, these figures even have little like black lines on them to add detail to their sculpt. NECA is doing a much better job than Hasbro, and Hasbro is only up the top there because they have cornered the market. They paid the license fee and no one else can make Star Wars figures in the US of A. And that's even ignoring the HasLab bullcrap. So next time someone decides to comment about how unfair I am comparing Hasbro to imports and stuff, well, I don't have to. I'll just look at good NECA stuff and say like, look, this is the USA, and this isn't even the best NECA stuff. For the similar price, a little bit more, you can get the movie turtles, which are 10 times more quality than these, and 100 times more than Hasbro's stuff. Although, to give Hasbro some slack, some of their new Black Series figures do have a really good face sculpt, and their Power Rangers Lightning stuff are kind of nice, so let's hope they can keep up the quality with that and not reduce it. In terms of the Ninja Turtle stuff, I have pre-ordered the movie Splinter, Shredder, and the 2 Foot Soldiers. And just to compare that with the Comic-Con exclusive, of course, Splinter is not as injured, it's not as battered, he doesn't have the chains or handcuffs, and of course there's no weapon rack or little fence. That's fine because you get a clean Splinter as well as a little TCRI canister. That's so cool. So if you like the Ninja Turtle movie, definitely pre-order that now before it runs out. I've also pre-ordered the DC collectibles of Batman vs Ninja Turtle set, all of it, and GameStop actually has the Batman Mikey for sale, so I've ordered that as well. That's so cool. For the classic Ninja Turtles lines, I look forward to April and Casey Jones. They got the joints spot on. It reminds me of SH FiguArts quality almost. So I really look forward to them, and of course Bebop and Rocksteady. And overall, I am so happy finally having a 1/12 scale cartoon Shredder. I look forward to picking up the Splinter and Shredder from the movies as well, and I can't wait for them to release a Splinter for the animated series as well. One more thing about the Ninja Turtles is that NECA has teased at the Comic-Con the same turtles but with a more cartoony color without the different shadow looks. I mentioned that in the video, but you know, they're more green, more limeish green, and just more vibrant. So if you don't like this particular color scheme, want something more like the cartoon turtles, you can look forward to that. Although I don't know if they're going to be releasing, you know, extra Shredder or extra Krang. That's going to suck a bit if you don't pick them up now. As always, if you enjoyed this video, found it useful, please consider clicking the thumbs up button if you haven't done so already. And of course, click the subscribe button and the bell to be notified of future videos. I'm of course going to be filming the Ninja Turtle figures I mentioned in this video, but on my channel I've also reviewed a lot of other Ninja Turtle toys from different brands, as well as other NECA toys on this channel as well, if that's what you like. As always, take care, have a nice day, I'll see you guys soon, Cowabunga.